The galaxy had long forgotten Earth. To the High Council of the Stellar Alliance, humans were nothing more than a backward species living on a muddy little rock at the edge of nowhere. Their ships were slow, their weapons weak, and their history messy. They had no voice in galactic affairs, no seat at the great table, and no one cared to give them one. But out near the frozen rings of Kalis 7, on a lonely research station barely big enough for 3 people, Lisa Carter sat alone listening. Lisa was not a warrior. She was a xenolinguist, one of the few humans the Alliance had ever hired. Her job was simple: study alien sounds, decode old signals, and try to understand how other species spoke. Most of the time, her work went unnoticed. Reports she filed vanished into data archives, never read, never used. But Lisa did not mind. She loved the quiet. She loved the mystery of voices from long-dead worlds. That all changed when the Zenari came. The Zenari were not like other empires. They did not demand tribute or declare war. They came in peace, or so they claimed. Their silver ships glided through space like ghosts, silent and smooth. When they arrived at a planet, they played a soft, humming song. Within days, every living thing on that world would walk calmly into the light, never to return. The Zenari called it joining. Everyone else called it erasure. No one had ever escaped. No one had ever fought back. And no one in the Alliance dared to try. When the Zenari fleet entered the Kalis system, panic spread through the outer colonies. Ships scrambled to leave. Families packed what they could. The Alliance sent a single message to Lisa's station: evacuate immediately. Your work is no longer needed. But Lisa did not leave. While others ran, she stayed at her console, headphones pressed to her ears, listening to the Zenari song. To most, it was just noise, a gentle looping tone with no words, no meaning. But Lisa heard something else. Beneath the calm surface, there was a crack, a tremor, a voice trying to break free. She recorded it. She replayed it. She slowed it down, sped it up, filtered it through every program she had, and then she heard it, a whisper, buried deep in the signal. Help us. Her hands shook. She sent the data to Alliance Command, along with a full analysis. She explained that the Zenari were not a unified mind. They were prisoners. The song was not an invitation, it was a cage, and someone inside was screaming. The reply came within minutes. Your findings are noted. However, emotional interpretation is not evidence. Proceed with evacuation. They did not believe her. Lisa stared at the message. Outside her viewport, the stars were cold and distant. The nearest Allied ship was 3 days away. The Zenari were already orbiting the ice moon below. Their song grew louder, filling the station's comms with its eerie hum. She knew she had 2 choices: run or stay. She chose to stay. She powered down non-essential systems to save energy. She locked the airlocks. She brewed the last of her coffee and sat back down at her station. If no one else would listen, she would. If no one else would try, she would. For 2 days, she worked without sleep. She compared the Zenari signal to every known form of communication in the Alliance database. Bird calls from Xanthara, seismic pulses from the molten plains of Dravik, even old earth whale songs. And then she found it, a pattern. The Zenari song mirrored the brainwaves of a human in deep distress. It was not a language of conquest. It was a cry for rescue disguised as harmony. With shaking hands, she began building a response. She used spare parts from broken comms units, rewired a backup transmitter, and programmed it to send a single pulse, a counter-frequency tuned to the hidden voice in the Zenari signal. It was a long shot. It might do nothing. It might even make things worse. But it was all she had. On the 3rd night, the Zenari ships moved closer. Their beams of pale blue light swept over the station. The song grew so loud it vibrated in Lisa's bones. She took a deep breath, pressed the transmit button, and sent her signal into the void. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the nearest Zenari vessel shuddered. Its smooth surface rippled like water. The song skipped, a single broken note. Across the comms, a voice, raw and human-like, gasped one word. Please. Lisa's heart pounded. It had worked. Someone inside had heard her. But before she could send another pulse, alarms blared across the station. Power levels dropped. Life support flickered. The Zenari were not just broadcasting. They were draining the station's energy, pulling it into their network. She had minutes, maybe less. She typed a final message. Not to the Alliance this time. She sent it on an old Earth emergency band, a frequency no one used anymore. She didn't know if anyone would hear it. She didn't even know if Earth still monitored it. but it was the only place left that might care. This is Lisa Carter, Station K7. Xenari are not what they seem. They're trapped. I found a way to reach them. If anyone from Earth is listening, I could use some help. She hit send. The message shot into space, weak and fading. Then the lights went out. In the dark, Lisa sat alone, listening to the song grow louder, feeling the cold creep in. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Someone please hear me." Far away, beyond the rim of known space, 3 black ships powered up their drives. Deep in their command center, Captain Maria Gonzalez read the incoming message. Her eyes narrowed. Her jaw tightened. "Plot a jump to Kalis 7, she ordered. "Full speed." The crew did not ask why. They knew. Earth never left its own behind. As the engines roared to life, Maria looked at the star map and said softly, "Hold on, Lisa. We're coming." Years passed. The valley where Lisa once walked alone was now filled with life. Xenari children played beneath earth oaks, their laughter mixing with the rustle of leaves. Schools stood where silence once ruled. Markets buzzed with traders from a dozen worlds, all drawn not by wealth but by peace. Lisa was older now. Her hair had streaks of gray and her steps were slower, but her eyes still held the same quiet fire. She no longer led the voice council, but she visited often, sitting in the back, listening more than speaking. Her greatest pride was not in laws passed or wars stopped, but in the simple fact that no one on this world feared being heard. But the galaxy, as always, turned. A new signal came, not from raiders or empires, but from deep space beyond the known rim. It was faint, broken, repeating one phrase over and over in a language no one recognized. The Alliance dismissed it as cosmic noise. Even the Xenari, now skilled in many tongues, could not decode it. But Lisa knew. She sat alone in her study, headphones on, listening for hours. The rhythm was wrong. The pauses too long. It was not a message. It was a cry. She sent word to Earth. Not with urgency, but with certainty. Someone is out there, and they are very, very alone. This time, Earth did not wait for a request. Within days, the EF's horizon, now commanded by a young officer named Rachel Bell, jumped to the edge of mapped space. Lisa went with them. Not as a hero, not as an expert, but as a friend to the lost. They found the source near a dead star. A single ship, ancient and cracked, drifting without power. It was not built for war or trade. It was built for running. Its hull was scarred with old wounds, its lights long dead. Aboard, they found one survivor. A woman, thin and pale, wrapped in tattered cloth, curled in the corner of a dark chamber. She did not speak. She did not move. But when Lisa entered, the woman's eyes flickered toward her, not with fear, but with something deeper. Hope. Lisa knelt. She did not reach out. She did not speak. She simply sat silent and waited. Hours passed. Then the woman whispered a word, not in any known tongue, but Lisa understood. It meant listen. Back on the Xenari world, the stranger, named Elira, slowly came back to life. She spoke of a people erased by a machine god that fed on silence. Her world had tried to resist, but the machine did not kill. It hollowed. It turned minds into empty shells that walked and worked but never dreamed. Elira had escaped in the last ship. She had been calling into the void for 20 years. No one had answered. Until Lisa. The Alliance wanted to study her ship, to learn from the machine's tech. Earth said no. She is not a specimen, Captain Rachel told them. She is a person. Instead, Earth offered Elira a home. Not on a base, not in a lab, but in the valley beside Lisa. They built her a small house with wide windows and a garden. Xenari children brought her flowers. Earth teachers helped her learn words again. And Lisa, she sat with her every evening listening to stories of a lost world, holding space for grief that had no name. But Elira's arrival changed more than one life. Her story spread. Other whispers came from the dark, faint signals, broken songs, silent pleas. Species long thought extinct were reaching out not for weapons, but for witnesses. Earth responded not with fleets, but with listeners. They trained new xenolinguists, not just humans, but Xenari, Vorthans, even former raiders. They built quiet ships, unarmed and open, painted white like the Guardian. Their only mission, go where no one else will. Listen where no one else cares. Lisa watched the first-class graduate from the new academy. Young faces, many not even human, standing tall, ready to sail into the unknown, not to conquer, but to connect. You started this, Rachel said to her one night. No, Lisa replied. I just proved that one voice matters. Earth proved that one life is worth crossing the stars for. On the day Lisa turned 70, the valley held a gathering. Not a ceremony, not a speech, just people. Xenari, humans, Vorthans, Elira, children, elders, farmers, pilots. They shared food, songs, and silence. In the center stood a new tree, planted from a seed Elira had carried from her dead world. It was small, fragile, but alive. As the sun set, Lisa sat beneath it, eyes closed, listening, not to signals or songs, but to the sound of a galaxy learning to care. Far above, Earthships patrolled the edges, not as guards, but as guides. And in 1,000 quiet corners of space, someone who once felt alone now knew, if you speak, someone will hear. Because Earth had taught the stars a new truth, that the strongest thing in the universe is not a weapon, not a throne, but a hand held out in the dark. And Lisa Carter, the quiet linguist who once sat alone on a frozen moon, had helped the whole galaxy learn to hold on. Darkness filled the station. The hum of the Xenari song pressed against Lisa's ears like a weight. Her breath came in short gasps. The air was getting thin. Outside, the silver ships hovered, their blue beams wrapping around the station like vines. She could feel the pull, not just on the metal but on her mind. A soft voice whispered inside her head, not in words but in feelings. Surrender, peace, silence. But Lisa clenched her fists and held on to one thought. Wait. She did not know if help would come. Earth had been ignored for so long. Maybe they had forgotten her too. But she had sent the message. That was all she could do. Then, without warning, the song stopped. Silence crashed down like a wave. Lisa opened her eyes. The blue light flickered. The Xenari ships trembled. Far off in the distance, space itself seemed to tear open. 3 black shapes emerged. They were massive, longer than city blocks, sharp-edged and silent. No lights, no markings, just smooth hulls that drank the starlight. The Xenari turned toward them, confused. They had never seen ships like this. They had never seen anything that did not obey their song. Aboard the lead vessel, Captain Maria Gonzalez stood on the command deck, arms crossed, eyes locked on the screen. Beside her, Lieutenant Tina Ross adjusted the weapon systems. Resonance cannons charged and locked on target, she said. Good, Maria replied. Use Lisa's frequency, not to destroy, to wake them up. Earth had not come to fight. They had come to free. The first shot fired. Not a blast of fire, but a pulse of sound shaped from Lisa's signal. It cut through space like a knife through fog. When it struck the nearest Xenari ship, the vessel shuddered violently. Cracks spread across its surface. From within, a chorus of voices rose. Not one, but thousands, screaming, crying, laughing all at once. The collective was breaking. Lisa felt it too. The mental pressure vanished. She gasped as fresh air hissed back into the station. Lights flickered on. Her console beeped, power restored. On the screen she saw the black ships moving with impossible grace, weaving between the Xenari fleet, firing pulse after pulse. Each shot did not kill. It remembered. Memories flooded the Xenari network. Childhood lullabies, first steps, lost loves, quiet mornings. Things the collective had erased. Now they returned. And with them came pain, joy, rage, hope. Emotions the Xenari had not felt in centuries. One by one their ships powered down. Their lights dimmed. Then hatches opened. Beings stepped out, tall, pale, with silver eyes full of tears. They floated in zero gravity, clutching their heads, overwhelmed but alive. Free. Lisa watched through the viewport, tears streaming down her face. She had not saved them with weapons. She had saved them with listening. On the bridge of the Earthship, Maria gave a small nod. Bring her in. A shuttle detached from the battleship and docked with the station. Minutes later, Maria walked through the airlock and found Lisa still at her console, wrapped in a thin blanket, shivering but smiling. You came, Lisa whispered. Of course we did, Maria said, handing her a thermos. You're one of us. Back at Alliance headquarters, chaos erupted. Council members shouted over each other. How did Earth have such technology? Why had they hidden it? And why risk everything for one linguist on a frozen moon? The truth was simple, though none of them wanted to accept it. Earth did not measure worth by power or profit. They measured it by people, and Lisa Carter was one of theirs. In the days that followed, the freed Xenari gathered on a neutral station. They asked for Lisa by name. They called her the listener, the one who heard their pain when the whole galaxy turned away. They begged her to help them rebuild, not as a hive, but as individuals. As a people, Lisa agreed. Meanwhile, Earth ships prepared to leave. Maria stood on the observation deck watching the Zenari survivors embrace, argue, cry, and laugh, the messy, beautiful noise of freedom. Tina joined her. They'll never forget what we did here. They don't need to remember Earth, Maria said. They just need to remember that someone cared. As the black ships vanished into jump space, the Alliance issued a new directive. All future contact with Earth must be handled with extreme caution. Not because they were dangerous, but because they were unpredictable. They did not play by the rules. They did not trade in power. They traded in loyalty. And loyalty, the Alliance was learning, was the most powerful force in the galaxy. Weeks later, Lisa stood on a new world under twin suns, teaching Zenari children how to speak their own names. Each voice was different. Each story mattered. She no longer felt small or forgotten. She had done what no army could. She had reached into the dark and pulled someone back. Far away on a quiet planet called Earth, people went about their lives. They farmed, they taught, they built. They did not boast. They did not seek glory, but if one of their own called out, they would move heaven and stars to answer, because that was who they were. And the galaxy was just beginning to understand. Peace settled over the Zenari world like morning mist, soft but steady. Lisa Carter walked the same path each day, past the learning circle, through the orchard of silver leaf trees, down to the river where children played in the shallows. They called her name when they saw her, not with fear or awe, but with the easy joy of someone who knew she would stop, listen, and maybe tell a story. But Lisa felt a change coming, not in the wind or the sky, but in the silence between stars. Reports trickled in from the outer systems. Old enemies of the Zenari were gathering, not raiders this time, but full fleets, led by the Vorthan hegemony, a proud and ancient empire that had once lost a war to the Zenari collective centuries ago. Now that the Zenari were free, the Vorthans saw weakness. They spoke of cleansing the stain and restoring balance. Their warships massed at the edge of Zenari space. The Alliance issued warnings, but took no action. They were still ashamed, still divided. Some wanted to help. Others whispered that the Zenari had brought this on themselves by breaking from the collective. Lisa knew words would not stop the Vorthans. Not this time. She sent another message to Earth. Not a plea. Not a cry. Just coordinates, fleet numbers, and one sentence. They remember what you did last time. They think you won't come again. 3 hours later, the sky above the Zenari capital split open. Not one ship. Not 3. An entire fleet emerged from warp. 20 black battleships, silent and sharp, forming a wall between the Zenari world and the Vorthan advance. At their center flew the F's Guardian, now flanked by newer vessels bearing names like F's Liberty, F's Horizon, and F's Promise. Captain Dana Wilson's voice echoed across every channel, calm and clear. This system is under Earth protection. Turn back. The Vorthan commander, a scarred veteran named Krell Vox, laughed. Earth, the mud world? You hid for centuries. Now you show your face to defend broken slaves. They are not slaves, Dana replied. And we were never hiding. We were waiting for someone worth standing with. Krell ordered his fleet to fire. What happened next stunned the galaxy. Earth's ships did not return fire with lasers or missiles. Instead, they unleashed a wave of resonance, not to shatter hulls, but to shatter lies. The pulse carried recorded voices, Zenari children laughing, elders singing old songs, farmers sharing stories at dusk. It flooded the Vorthan comms, their barracks, even their command decks. For the first time, the Vorthan soldiers heard the people they were sent to destroy, not as monsters, but as neighbors. Confusion spread. Orders were questioned. On 3 Vorthan ships, crews refused to fire. Krell screamed for discipline, but it was too late. His own first officer turned to him and said, "We were told they had no voices, but they do. And they sound like us." The Vorthan fleet broke formation. Some ships fled. Others powered down in surrender. Dawn came to the Zenari world. No cities burned. No blood spilled. Only silence, then cheers. On the ground, Lisa watched the black ships hover like guardians. She did not feel pride. She felt relief. Earth had not come to win a war. They had come to prevent one. Later that day, Dana met her by the river. They'll be back. Dana said quietly. Not the Vorthans, others. The galaxy is full of those who fear kindness more than weapons. I know, Lisa said, but maybe now they'll think twice. Word of the standoff spread faster than any battle ever could. Species that had never spoken to Earth sent messages, not of fear but curiosity. A dozen young aliens applied to study on Earth. Human teachers were invited to open schools on neutral worlds. The phrase Earth Standard began appearing in trade talks not as a joke, but as a mark of fairness. Back home, people on Earth went about their lives. They fixed roads, taught classes, grew food. They did not cheer in the streets. They did not demand statues. They simply knew. When one of theirs reached out, the whole world stood behind them. But the biggest change came from within the Alliance itself. Shamed by Earth's quiet strength, the Council voted to reform. They created a new branch, the Voice Council, made only of former oppressed species, freed collectives, and refugee leaders. Lisa was asked to lead it. She refused the title but agreed to guide it. I'm not a leader, she told them. I'm a listener. And that's what this council needs, not rulers but ears. In her first session, she sat in the center of the room and said nothing for 10 minutes. Then she asked, "Who has not been heard today?" A small delegate from a water world spoke. Then a miner from a dead moon. Then a child, barely old enough to walk, who had lost her family to a forgotten war. Lisa listened. And for the first time, so did everyone else. Meanwhile, Earth's fleet did not leave. They stayed in orbit, not as occupiers, but as neighbors. Their crews traded stories with Cenari farmers. They helped rebuild damaged outposts. They even planted earth trees in the valley, oaks and maples that would take decades to grow, but would stand long after they were gone. One evening, as stars blinked awake, Lisa sat with Dana on a hill. "Do you ever wonder," Lisa asked, "if we're changing too much? If the galaxy will ever see us as equals, not saviors?" Dana smiled. "They don't need to see us as saviors. They just need to see us as human. And you showed them that being human means caring, even when no one is watching." Far above, the black ships glowed faintly in the starlight. Below, children played near the new trees, their voices rising like birdsong. The galaxy had spent centuries measuring strength in fire and steel. Earth had shown them a different kind of power, the power of showing up, of staying, of listening. And in that quiet strength, a new future began to grow. Months passed. The Cenari world, once silent and still, now buzzed with voices. Markets opened. Songs returned. Children played in the open air, their laughter echoing through cities that had stood empty for generations. At the heart of it all was Lisa Carter, no longer just a linguist, but a bridge between two kinds of life. She lived in a small house on the edge of a green valley, built with help from the very people she had helped free. They called her Voice Mother, not out of worship, but gratitude. Every morning, she walked to the learning circle where former Cenari drones, now individuals with names like Kale, Nira, and Joran, practiced speaking, arguing, dreaming out loud. Some days they cried. Some days they shouted. Lisa never stopped them. Freedom was messy, and that was okay. But peace never lasts long in the galaxy. Rumors began to spread. Other species, once afraid of the Cenari, now saw them as weak, broken, easy to take. Raiders from the outer fringe started testing the borders. Small attacks at first. A stolen supply ship, a burned outpost. Then bigger ones. A mining colony was hit. 20 Cenari were taken. The Alliance did nothing. They claimed it was an internal matter. The Cenari were no longer a threat, so they were no longer worth protecting. Lisa knew what that meant. She had seen it before. When a people lose their power, the galaxy forgets their pain. She sent a message to Earth, not through Alliance channels, not through official lines. She used the same old emergency band, the one only humans would recognize. Just 3 words. "They're hurting again." She did not expect an answer right away. Earth was far, busy. Maybe they had moved on. But 3 days later, a single ship dropped out of warp above the Cenari homeworld. It was not one of the great black battleships. This one was smaller, sleeker, painted white with a green stripe along its side. On its hull was the same symbol, the Earth globe wrapped in olive branches. The ship sent no demands, no threats. It simply hovered, silent and calm. Then a voice came over every comm channel on the planet. Not loud, not angry, just clear. "This is Captain Dana Wilson of the EFS Guardian. We are here at the request of Lisa Carter. Any force that harms the Zenari people will answer to Earth." The raiders laughed at first. They had never heard of the EFS Guardian. They thought it was a bluff. They sent 2 attack cruisers to drive the ship away. They never made it. Before they could fire, their engines failed. Their weapons locked. Their crews found themselves staring at view screens filled with the faces of their own families. Images pulled from public records, displayed not as threats, but as reminders. "Go home," Dana's voice said gently. "Your children are waiting." The raiders turned and fled. Word spread fast. Earth was not just watching. They were standing guard. The Alliance called an emergency session. "This is interference," one delegate shouted. "Earth has no right." Another, quieter voice replied. "They have every right. They saved the Zenari. Now they protect them. What have we done but watch?" Shame fell over the chamber. For the first time, the great powers of the galaxy saw themselves clearly, not as wise rulers, but as bystanders who only acted when it served them. Meanwhile, on the Zenari world, Lisa stood with Dana on a hill overlooking the valley. The suns were setting, painting the sky in gold and violet. "You didn't have to come," Lisa said. "Yes, we did," Dana replied. "You showed us that listening is a kind of strength. Now we're showing the galaxy that protecting the weak is not weakness, it's honor." Back on Earth, schools began teaching the story of Lisa Carter, not as a hero with a gun, but as a woman who sat alone in the dark and chose to listen. Children wrote letters to her. Farmers sent seeds from their fields. Engineers built small devices that played her original signal, a lullaby of hope. The Zenari, in turn, started sending gifts to Earth, woven cloths, carved stones, songs recorded in their new voices. They called Earth the quiet giant, strong enough to crush but kind enough to kneel. Then came the day the High Council changed its mind. They invited Lisa to speak at the Grand Assembly, the first human ever asked. She stood before thousands of species, in a hall built to echo power. But she did not speak of war or victory. She spoke of silence. "For a long time," she said, "I thought being heard was the goal. But I was wrong. The real gift is learning to hear others." The room fell still. Even the Alliance leaders leaned forward. The Zenari were screaming inside a song no one understood. "I didn't save them. I just listened. And Earth didn't come because I was important. They came because no one should be left alone in the dark." When she finished, no one clapped. Instead, one by one, delegates rose and placed their hands over their hearts, a gesture of deep respect in many cultures. It was the first time in centuries the Assembly showed true unity. Afterward, the Council passed a new law. Any species that breaks free from forced unity must be granted protection and aid. They called it the Carter Clause. Lisa smiled but said nothing. Laws could change. Hearts were harder. Still, as she walked back to her ship, Dana waiting with a warm cup of tea, she felt something shift in the galaxy. Not a roar, not a bang, but a whisper, growing louder. Earth was no longer ignored. Not because they had the biggest guns, but because they carried the quietest courage. The courage to care. And in a universe full of empires shouting for attention, that whisper was the most powerful sound of all.